Spread love, spread love, spread love. What's up, everybody? Tony Gapistone here. I'm one of the co-pastors of The Quest. It's February 17th, still in the month of love. When I look at the date today, I'm like, oh, it's only like 3 days after Valentine's Day. Why does Valentine's Day feel like a year ago? This is the life we are in right now. It is still pandemic 2021. We're still doing a lot of life online, and it's okay. It's challenging. I know it's exhausting. And it's also good. It can be good. And that's why we're excited for this special Up Close and Personal today. My co-host and co-pastor, Matt Nightingale, is sitting on a vacation, probably on the beautiful beach somewhere, maybe even chatting on the chat today. We'll see how that goes. But we're glad that you're here. If you're watching us live or on the replay, always love when people say hello in the comments. I want you to know that we will take questions that come in with our special guest today. And today is cool because this is actually an introduction to a very cool tool and resource that we are doing a workshop on in just a couple weeks. So with no further ado, let me invite special guest, Chelsea Edwards, who is a Enneagram coach, and she runs and operates Level Up Enneagram. So welcome, Chelsea Edwards.
Thank you. It's great to be with you guys tonight.
And some people might know you because you came to lead music when we were in person a couple years ago. So you are more than just, you're many things. You're a wife, you're a musician, you're a coach, all these kind of things. So why don't you just do an intro and share with everybody a little bit about yourself, where you're videoing in from, and how you got into doing the Enneagram. And what is the Enneagram?
Sure. So like Tony said, I am Chelsea Edwards. For those of you guys who have been at the Quest for a while, you probably would know my wife more than you know me. Her name is Erin Edwards, and she has preached at the Quest before. And yes, I came to help lead worship because I am the worship leader of our church, Live on Purpose Community Church here in Davis, California. We have a beautiful church just like yours, where we just have a beautiful community of people. The Enneagram has been so incredibly helpful, not only in my own life, but in our church and just in every relationship that I have. It's incredibly insightful, incredibly accurate and helpful. So I'm excited to share this tool with you all. And I hope that on not this Sunday, but the following Sunday, we get to talk deeper about it.
Right on. Yeah. People are saying hi. They're chiming in. We got Elizabeth from Texas, and Matt is there. Yahoo, from Mexico.
Hey, Matt.
Right on. And Val, awesome, on the coast in Dildon Beach. And so, yeah, let's talk about the Enneagram, because sometimes there's a skepticalness to things like this.
Mm-hmm.
If anybody has ever taken, a personality assessment before, like the Myers-Briggs or the Strength Finders, it might feel like, in the olden days, in the back of a magazine while you waited to get your haircut, these little checked box kind of quizzes that you take.
Of course.
Describe what the Enneagram is. And it's Enneagram because it's got 9 different points. And sometimes you look at it, you're like, oh, what is that? Is that a pentagram? What is that? So give a little overview about what the Enneagram is, actually.
Of course, yeah. When a lot of people see the Enneagram diagram, it is kind of like, what the heck is that thing? But like you said, it's a 9-pointed figure, and each of those 9 points correlates to a different personality type. So you might be thinking like, okay, 9 different people, 9 different types of people in the world. That doesn't make any sense. How is that possible? There's way more variety than that. And to that, I would say absolutely, you're right. The 9 types are very basic. They're very much foundation part of the Enneagram. They basically, if you are one type, you share the same core motivations as people who share that same number. But then if you add in all of the stuff that we're going to be talking about in our workshop, the levels of development and the wings and the triads and all of that, it just adds a lot of variety to how it's possible that we can be in this system that works the way that it does. So the difference between this personality assessment and pretty much a lot of other personality tests is that every other one pretty much will focus on traits and behaviors, whereas the Enneagram focuses on motivation, the why behind what you do and why you do it. So it's so incredibly helpful in that way, because it's not going to be something that's going to like fluff you up only the way that most personality tests do. They're not going to just tell you all the great things about you. The Enneagram is going to also break down where you have some weak spots and where you can improve. And what's so important about that is I believe that self-observation is the beginning of growth. It's the beginning of transformation. And the Enneagram provides an opportunity for accelerated growth. If you can self-observe and really break down your own motivations, then you can find a way to change the ones that aren't benefiting you and aren't actually healthy. And so that's really helpful.
So good. So I have been in the Enneagram for over a decade. I love it. It's super helpful, as Chelsea, as you were saying, for self-evaluation and self-reflection. Like, who am I? What are my motivations? What are my desires? It's also really helpful for our relationships,
Yes.
for our workplaces, our teams that we live in, our families, that kind of thing. So grab a pencil and paper, y'all, because we're going to go over just a lightly brush the 9 different types. And I already have put in the chat the website for Chelsea, as well as her Instagram page. And we'll do that again so you can go and follow her, because I love Instagram pages that, like you do, put out these little memes and posts on the regular that remind me who I am and who other people are, or at least how they're motivated, so I can know people better and know myself better. And this is what we're going to be doing. I'm going to put this in the chat right now. This is what we're going to be doing on the 28th of February. It's a Sunday afternoon, and it's going to be 11:30 a.m. Pacific time, 1:30 Central Time, 2:30 Eastern Standard Time. It only costs $20, and it's going to be an in-depth workshop where you can talk more about these things. You'll get some prep work to do ahead of time. There's lots of assessments you can take online to figure out about yourself. But Chelsea's going to go do a little overview over each one, and I'll pull up each of the posts that she's already done on her Instagram page as she talks about it. So let's go into from 1 to 9, Chelsea, and just kind of go an overview over these desires and core of each a number.
Sure. If you want to specifically go over those yep, you got it. Wow, good job. Go Tony. All right, so the type 1 is called the Moral Perfectionist, and these people are typically very principled, purposeful. They're self-controlled. They're perfectionistic, and they struggle with this need to be good in every way. And it's obviously impossible to be good in every single way. And so they can be very hard on themselves, have a really hard time kind of not beating themselves up constantly. They have what they call like this inner critic that's constantly in their heads, making them feel certain ways about everything, and it can be really hard for them to not need to be perfect. So that's the type 1. And if you look there, you can see the core desire and core weakness, core fear and core longing of the type 1. And just as I'm going through all of these, don't expect to kind of know what your type is right away. Even if you were to take one of these personality tests for the Enneagram, those are only about 80% accurate. You really have to dig deep to kind of figure out what your type is. But once you do, it opens up so much for you, and it opens up this amazing tool for you to use. So just disclaimer there. Hopefully this will kind of give you a little bit of an idea of what you might be.
If you want to follow along right now, you can go to level.up.enneagram, but we'll move on to number 2.
Yes. The type 2 is the supportive advisor. These people are generous, they're demonstrative, people-pleasing, they can be possessive in relationships, and they are the type of people that can walk into a room and instantly sense who needs something, who is not okay, and they are the people that will be there for you. They will constantly give of themselves, and they're the givers of the Enneagram.
I've heard this one be labeled as the helper too.
Yes.
The person who likes to help and the caretaker. I've also heard people who are 2s often say they're most like Jesus.
Well, I mean, aren't we all?
That's right.
Yeah, we actually, in our workshop, I'm going to be going over how we all reflect who God is in different ways. So I'm not going to give you that yet, but we'll get there.
Got to sign up.
So then we have the type 3, the successful achiever. This is my type as well as Tony's type, so you guys get to judge us secretly now. We are adaptable, excelling, driven. We could be image conscious. And these types are usually the ones that are going to get in and get things done because we need to achieve. We have to kind of, we can be kind of different mask wearers. We can adjust really quickly to whatever the room needs us to be. And so we can kind of flip back and forth in the way that we represent ourselves based on what is called for in the moment.
As a type 3, like you, I can talk about myself here. What I love about the Enneagram is it tells you like what you're good at, what brings you peace, how your core desires can benefit you and benefit others. And it also tells you about when you're stressed, how you can be unresourceful. And I like that language a lot because sometimes we don't, we talk about our growth edges or our weaknesses, and those can be negative things. But the idea that we can be unresourceful when we're stressed, and every number has these resourceful sides and these unresourceful sides. I think another way they talk about it is your shadow side. And it's really interesting, like when you start to figure out, which we'll go in depth, Chelsea will, on the 28th, that this little, this 9-pointed gram thing all connects because we are nuanced human beings. There's no, like one way you can be put into a box.
Right.
And we don't even have the time tonight to talk about, but every one of these numbers has a number on either side, which is called your wing. And so you reflect these different character traits of these other numbers. It's so beautiful. Sounds complicated, but once you get it, you figure it out. I love it. So
yes. Good. Yeah, don't stress if you have no clue what we're talking about right now. We will, on the 28th, go deeper, but also kind of break it down into small bite-sized chunks so you will understand and probably have a pretty good idea of what you might be by the end of that workshop. So yeah, stay tuned. So type 4 is the romantic individualist. They are expressive. They could be dramatic. They could possibly be a little bit self-absorbed at times, temperamental. They are very creative usually. And these people are one of the most interesting types to me. I find them fascinating because they can look so different on the outside. 4s and 6s have the widest variety of subtypes in how they display their core motivations. And so I find them really interesting, and I enjoy coaching 4s specifically. Not that I don't with every type, but 4s are really fun.
And what did you label this one? The 4?
The romantic individualist.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, I've heard those are the 2 ones I've heard. Yeah, that's great.
Yes.
The artists people, the arty, moody people usually identify this way, and I've had numerous people say, "You're a 4, Tony," and I'm like, "I'm a 3/4. I love the artistic side. I find myself creative, but I find I'm more driven. My core desire is to make and achieve and that kind of thing." So that's the thing we'll talk about too on the workshop, is how these things are in tandem sometimes, and you exhibit the traits of numerous numbers.
Yeah, perfect. All right, so we have the type 5, who is the investigative thinker. They are perceptive, innovative. They can be secretive. Sometimes they're isolated. These people are very knowledge-driven. They like to collect a bunch of information, and it makes them feel more secure in the world. It makes them feel like they can feel more, less anxiety in the world. And so they take a lot of time, usually privately, to gain knowledge and just read up on whatever it is that they're interested in, or whatever it is that they feel like is useful to them in the moment.
I have friends who are super researchers when it comes to going on a vacation or buying a car. Read the manual for every single thing you can learn in the instructions. Those tend to be those who exhibit characteristics of the 5, the investigative researcher. I love that. It's a great thing. So you might be hearing some of these traits in yourself. If this is, again, a new concept to you, just be jotting down some things. Maybe I'm a 5, maybe I'm a 3. And then as you get to learn more, you'll start to discover more and more, and things will begin to make sense. And feel free to ask any questions in the comments too, those of you who are watching live.
Right. And just like Tony was saying, like you might see yourself, a little bit of yourself in every single one of these types. Mm-hmm. And we kind of carry all of the types, but it's just we have one that stands out as far as what our actual motivations are. Is that's what you're going to identify with, and that is what is going to be your type. And again, we'll get into all of that in the workshop. Hopefully by the end of that workshop, you can at least narrow it down to 2 or 3 that you may be. But I help if you need help. I've got typing interviews, and we'll get through all of that. But go through the workshop first and see how you feel. It'll be awesome. So then we have the type 6. That is the loyal guardian. They are engaging. They're usually very responsible. They can be anxious or suspicious. These are like the worst case scenario thinkers. While the type 1 has that inner critic, type 6 has like an inner committee. They have a bunch of different voices in their heads that are saying, well, what about this? Well, what about that? Well, what if this happens? And a type 6 is usually has a hard time like figuring out which of those voices to listen to. But they are very loyal. They're usually the glue of businesses and teams. They're the people that kind of hold us all together because of that loyalty part of them.
I was mute. That was my part. That was my bad.
Okay.
It reminds me of the Pixar animated film Inside Out, right? When all those, that committee was inside their head. And exactly. I think about like so you said that the loyalist guardian, right?
The loyal guardian, yeah.
Loyal guardian. That's great. Yeah. So if you find yourself being someone that you value loyalty as well, this could be who you are, right? When we talk about relationships or jobs, and we find ourselves gravitating toward the person who builds our trust or who exhibits a lot of trust, and then when that trust is betrayed, we all obviously don't want to be betrayed. We all will suffer when we have relationships that don't, meet our expectations. But someone who's a 6, like these things are really strong for them, and it really exhibits, like, I like that, the idea of a core fear is not being secure and not feeling like we're going to be supported for who we are. Again, we all have these things, but if you really value safety and security as one of your main things in life, that could be a 6. It could be a 6.
Definitely.
Okay, next one, 7.
The type 7 is the entertaining optimist. They are spontaneous, versatile, acquisitive, scattered sometimes. These people are usually the life of the party, even when they don't want to be. My wife is a type 7, and they're usually like the inspirers. They have this incredible ability to like jump from topic to topic because their brains move so quickly. And so it can be hard sometimes to follow their train of thought, but somehow it all connects, and they can be, like I said, incredibly inspiring and amazing in that way.
I have friends who are 7, and I always admire them. Like, I feel like, I can be pretty spontaneous, but my 7 friends just feel like they're a circus and they're the life of the party. And everybody wants to be the life of the party. I want, to draw that crowd. But the 7s are usually the people who you can see are telling jokes and telling stories, and everyone's holding their drink and listening to them because that's just what they do. They're optimistic. The glass is always full. If it's not half full, it's half full. Roses, are on their shades. But I have friends who are very self-aware, and they will talk about their shadow side is avoiding pain. Like, they don't want to deal with conflict. And that's like the worst thing, is having to have a difficult conversation. So like, why not go on a road trip? Why not go see a movie? Why not avoid that kind of thing? Right.
Exactly. Yep. All right. And then we have the type. Go ahead. Did you say?
There you go. Type 8.
Cool. We've got type 8, who is the protective challenger. These people are self-confident. They're decisive, willful. They can be very confrontational. These are like the people that will just kind of tell you how it is, and they're very much going to get done whatever it is that they're trying to get done. They can be defined as like a snow plow. They're going to plow a way for people to follow them. They're very much powerful people.
I worked for an 8 in one of my jobs, and now please know too, as we talk about these things, one could get under your skin more than another. Like, someone might go, "Oh, the researcher," and all of a sudden we can make this negative, right? But the idea would be that all of these are good things. We need all 9 types in the world. And we also believe that God, the creator, made all of us in these nuanced and different ways. But again, we all have shadow sides. We all could be unresourceful. And so one of my bosses was a very strong 8, which it's great to have people who are all about justice and tell you like it is and make decisions quickly. But when that person gets resourceful, and then it becomes toxic, and then it becomes tearing people down for anything to get that way that you want. And so the Enneagram actually became really helpful for us to have dialogue as a team around how it felt to be under this person's supervision. And then this person never actually was able to mature into a healthy space, and ended up actually being fired from the job, which I was so grateful for. But it's so interesting once you start to know, because it can also help you cope if you're not knowing. The thing I would say too, which I'm sure you'll get into in the workshop, is we never want this to be a weapon we wield against people. I've heard people use this in context, and I also see a lot of your questions, by the way. We will get to them as soon as we finish the last 2. But people have said, well, because you're a 6, or that's because you're a 9, or that's because you're a 1. And we want to be really careful that we don't harm people by labeling them in their negative, with a negative identification by a number, because that's been an experience I've had before that I've actually done that I regret. I don't want to do that.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you for saying that. I think that any tool, especially one like the Enneagram, that is it is vulnerable, and it does kind of expose a lot of deep-seated things that you may not even be aware of, and within yourself. And yes, we don't want to ever use it as a weapon, because that's not what it's for. It is meant to kind of reveal that there are 9 different perspectives in the world, that you might see something one way and I might see it a different way. And that doesn't mean either of us are wrong. It's just the lens that we're seeing that situation through. And the Enneagram enlightens us to those other perspectives. It shows us, no, not everybody thinks like you do. And there's nothing wrong with that. Like Tony was saying, we need every single one of these types in order to function, in order to be all that we're supposed to be. If the world was ruled by threes, we'd be doomed. If the world was all about the nines, we wouldn't, it's not supposed to be one type better than the other. And at the same time as not using this as a weapon, it should never be used as an excuse for not growing, for kind of like, oh, well, I'm just a 3. I can't put my family first because I'm so work centered, and you can't use it as an excuse. It is meant to like show you where you struggle and therefore allow you to make a different choice. So
that's so good. That's so good, Chelsea. Was there anything else you wanted to say about an 8?
No, I think we're good. Let's move on to our 9s. Okay. These are the peaceful mediators. The 9s are receptive, reassuring, they're agreeable, they're complacent. 9s get like a bad rap because they have that sloth as far as their weakness, and that does not mean they're lazy. That just means that they fall asleep to their own desires often. If you guys know anything about sloths, they like crawl for a little bit and then they knock out, and then they'll wake up and they'll crawl a little bit and they'll knock out. So it has nothing to do with being lazy. So I hope that people don't take it that way. It has to do with kind of turning off your own desires as a defense mechanism in order to keep the peace, in order to not create conflict and not be a part of conflict, because that's like the worst thing in the world to a 9. And these people are really fun. I enjoy 9s. I usually get along really well with 9s. They're just the people that are kind of gonna go with the flow most of the time. And when they are called upon to give their opinion, they will usually say something really profound, but they usually won't say anything until you ask them. So they're really cool people too.
They're also peacemakers, which I think is really neat. I'm married to a 9, and my wife often can see different sides of conversations. And I always appreciate that. Sometimes I'm like, why are you seeing it from that side? Yes. That's who she is. And I appreciate it. And she wants to keep peace and find ways to move forward in harmony. You made a comment about if the world were run by 3s, we would all be in trouble. And I think one thing I really enjoy about the Enneagram is how it impacts me as a leader when I'm on a team, because I want to see balance and diversity. Just like we talk about, rightly so, how we need gender diversity. We need diversity in our churches, and in our companies when it comes to gender representation, or the LGBTQ plus community, or racial diversity. We want these things to exhibit in our world to be inclusive and diverse. In the same way, I think the Enneagram is really helpful when you're putting a team together, or when you have a project. You could say, all right, so I know I'm a 3-4. I probably really need to get a 5 on this team, because I need someone to research all the stuff that we're making decisions about. But we also need a life at the party. We need a 7. This is a really great tool for that. And as Chelsea pointed out, if you have a team that has a lot of one number, that might be a warning flag for you to go, what do we need to do about this? So let's talk about, I have some more questions that I want to pull in for you. Let's see. Someone was asking about your go-to references for gurus. Do you have somebody, Helen Palmer, Richard Russo, anybody else you would recommend?
I like Beatrice Chestnut. She has a book called The Complete Enneagram, and that is definitely a very complicated book. So don't let that be your first one, but she's one of my favorites. The Road Back to You is a really great book. Richard Rohr does a lot of good, so he actually has a couple of sermons on the Enneagram, and he's awesome. He's kind of, I think, been one of the main reasons why in progressive churches, especially, this is kind of taken off. So I would say all of those resources are great. But yeah, definitely the more you can read The Road Back to You or The Path Between Us, those are both really great books for the Enneagram starting points.
And Matt wants to know about a particular test that you would recommend. He's taken the Ready from the Enneagram Institute and the WEPS from Jerome Wagner. Anyone you would recommend?
The Ready is probably the best test. You can take a free version of that test on the website, but you can also get a little bit more in depth if you want to pay $10, so it's not crazy expensive. I always have people take the test on the Your Enneagram Coach platform because that's how I was certified, and I like the way that they break down the results. But again, don't trust that the test, your top result is definitely your type, because it's definitely something that you have to really dig through and really see.
And that's why you are a coach, because you help people walk through this. So I think that's a big part of personal assessment, is not just going, okay, I read a book or I took a test and this is who I am.
Right.
But it's also, I think, having other people affirm this in you. Hey, I see this in you. This is how you tend to make decisions, or this is how you are, in group settings. This is how you are in conflict. What do you think? And getting some dialogue going around that once you get some more experience under your belt, as well as, knowledge about the Enneagram. But let's talk about ways that the Enneagram can help someone. Why would this be an investment? $20 for the workshop, but in general, why would someone want to use this? What does it do for relationships, for work? How do you find it, in your faith? Anything you want to comment about the resourcefulness for people to use it?
Absolutely. Like I said, I believe that the beginning of growth is always self-observation. It's always like, even if someone were to tell you something like criticism of some kind that you might take to heart, it's until you are willing to kind of like ask yourself, am I like that? Did I do that? What was the reason why I did that? Until you're able to get to that place, nothing comes of it. It's just kind of like useless information that passes you by. And the Enneagram just kind of points those things out. It's like a non-judgmental friend. It kind of just lays it all out, the good and the bad, and allows you to really kind of observe yourself in a different light. Most of us kind of go through life sort of sleepwalking, like we are kind of asleep to all of these habits that we've formed and these survival strategies that we've kind of taken on, that we kind of put in front of who we actually are called to be. And until you can kind of break through that barrier, you can't really grow to your full potential. So the Enneagram does that. And then in relationships, it's so incredibly impactful to not only understand yourself. And so just a side note, if you feel like you know a whole bunch about the Enneagram, the workshop is still going to be helpful for you, because we are going to go over every single type in depth. And the more that you can learn, not only about yourself, but about other people in your life and how they see things, and how you might not line up on every single area of conflict, it's really helpful to kind of have compassion for each other and see where that person may need something different than what you need. And once you can kind of access that, it highlights all of the strengths in a team or in a relationship or in a marriage. It allows you to focus in on those good things, and where there's weakness, you can adjust it. So yes, it's incredibly impactful for every relationship that you have in your workplace, in church, in your own personal life, in your relationship with God. It's really helpful to kind of be honest with yourself and allow yourself to see where you can grow.
Mm-hmm. It's hard to be honest with ourselves, right? We're also taught, sometimes in unhealthy communities or faith groups or whatever, we're kind of like the finger wagging, how we got to be good at all these things, or our weaknesses should be worked on. We spend a lot of time working on our weaknesses. Like, I'm really bad administratively, so I really need to get better at that. And some of it's true. Like, I should learn how to organize my paperwork better, but I also need to recognize there's other people who are really good at this. And if I could find a partner who's really good at that, who enjoys doing these things, I could build a team around it. Doesn't excuse me from getting better and logging my receipts better or whatever. But I think this tool is really helpful in how we put together, especially around our workplaces or our faith communities or our projects. If only, students, if you have students in your life, I think this is really an important resource for them. And what I love about what you have, Chelsea, on your Instagram page, I'm going to pull it up in a second, are these little tips, right? So I referenced my supervisor who was an 8. Well, Chelsea has these posts, right? Like how to get along with me. So an 8, how do I get along with an 8? Be confident, strong, and direct. Stand up for yourself and them. Don't gossip about them or betray their trust in any way. They do not give their trust away easily. Be vulnerable and authentic with them. That helps them feel safe enough to open up, right? So as I was navigating this difficult relationship, I could go, well, this person I'm feeling is being unresourceful and in stressful times tears me down. But if I could just directly say, hey, when you do this, I feel that would help them be better, right? Yeah. So once we know how to interact, I think these little ideas can help us with our kids. Elizabeth is saying that. Thank you for that. Can help us parent better, can help us be better spouses, neighbors, all these kind of things. But it does take some intentionality. It does take some, first of all, someone has to understand the Enneagram. You don't want to go, well, I know you're a 4, so I'm going to treat you lightly because you're too moody. You definitely got to come into this willingly and then knowingly engage with people who have an understanding of the language. That's why it's a great also opportunity to invite someone. Maybe you want to gift this workshop to a friend or to a neighbor and say, hey, I'm going to do this on the 28th. Do you want to do it with me? I'll pay the $20 for you. And by the way, if $20 is unattainable for you right now, let us know. You can even go to that link and there is pay what you can, pay $5 or let us know. We're happy to scholarship you. We don't want anyone to not come because resources are unavailable right now. So Chelsea, any final things like why, this is important in regards to faith? We are a faith community. How does this benefit you as a person of faith?
Number one, like I said, it's so important to do some self-discovery because for me, for example, as a 3, it's easy for me to kind of focus on all my positive things because I can quickly change to what I need to be. And so even in my relationship with God, I can kind of play the part of good Christian really well, even with God. And of course, he obviously knows what's really behind all of that and he knows the truth. But in just kind of understanding myself better, I can be more vulnerable with God. I can be more open with him. And it's incredibly freeing to be able to be vulnerable in those ways and honest again with yourself. It's also really, really helpful again to have some compassion for people who don't see things the way that you do. And in a church, ideally, you have every single one of these types. And ideally, there might be that one person that you just don't like and you don't understand anything that they say or why they're coming at you in a certain way. And the Enneagram kind of just gives you a little glimpse into why that might be and what's behind the things that they're displaying, what's behind the behavior that you're seeing. And when you can see that, it's a lot easier to be patient with people, to be understanding. And that, I think, is super vital to any good walk with God.
I love it. So good. Well, if anybody has any questions, those of you who are watching live, we got a few minutes left. This is super cool. I could talk about this for a long time because it's been super meaningful. I also think it's fun once you learn the Enneagram to talk about it with your friends and dissect yourself and ask questions to other people that you are trustworthy, that you could, trust would be graceful and compassionate. One of my favorite questions that's really hard to put out there, but could be really super helpful is, if you could tell me anything and you knew I wouldn't get defensive, what would you bring to my attention? And do I have any blind spots? And if you know the Enneagram and the person that you trust that you asked this question of knows the Enneagram, you could point these things out. And you could go back to, Chelsea's page and look at like, okay, how does this play into my core, my growth, the growth areas and my desires. And Chelsea has these really cool images where it talks about like when I'm in stress and when I am in growth, or another way you could look at it, when I feel peace or when I feel stress. How do I manifest these things? If you're a type 9, when you're at peace, when you're feeling in a growth mode, you invest in yourself. You take time to discover your desires and passions. You can become confident. But when you're stressed, you're fixated on the worst case scenarios. You're constantly, your mind is constantly racing and doing these kind of things. And I just find this really, really helpful, really, really helpful tool. So again, hope you all will sign up. The link is in the chat. If you watch this on the replay, all these links should be live, so feel free to go. Sign up tonight. We'll continue to talk about it with our Quest community. And Chelsea, this is great. Anything else you want to say before we take off?
I don't think so. I'm excited to do this with you guys. This is a huge opportunity, I think, to just learn this tool. It's going to be relevant to you, whether this is brand new to you or you feel like you know a lot about it. So don't miss out on it. I'm excited to do it with you. So we'll see you guys hopefully all the 28th.
Right on. Fantastic. Cool. Super stoked to have you. Looking forward to the 28th. We are going to end with our Quest welcome video, which kind of sounds funny to end with it, but we just premiered this on Sunday and we're super happy with how it turned out. It's a 4-minute, like, this is who we are. So if you are just tuning into us, maybe you just discovered us and you're like, what is this faith community all about? We are about this welcoming and inclusive space that all people could find and follow Jesus and learn to live a life of love in God. So that's how we'll end. Thank you so much, Chelsea. We'll see you on the 28th. And everybody else, enjoy these words. Till then, bye-bye.
Welcome to the Quest.
Welcome to the Quest.
Welcome to the Quest. We're so glad you're here.
If you're looking for a church where the gifts and callings of all genders are recognized and celebrated, where Black Lives Matter, and where LGBTQ plus identities and relationships are affirmed as sacred, you've come to the right place.
We're so glad you're here. We want to extend a special welcome to those who are single, married, separated, divorced, widowed, or it's complicated.
We welcome you if you are straight, gay, lesbian, bi, transgender, cisgender, queer, non-binary, or still trying to figure it all out. We welcome you whether you are wealthy, poor, or somewhere in the middle.
We welcome wailing babies and active toddlers. We extend a special welcome to those who are over 60 and not yet grown up, and to teenagers who are having to grow up way too fast.
We welcome you whether you like rock and roll and blue jeans in church, or whether you prefer high church liturgy with smells and bells. We don't care if you're more Christian than the Pope or haven't been in a church building since your mom dragged you to Christmas Eve service 20 years ago.
We welcome you if you can sing like Beyonce or don't really understand why we sing in church at all. You are welcome here if you just woke up or if you haven't gone to bed yet. We welcome those who are in therapy, in recovery, or in denial.
We welcome you if you are having a great day or a shitty one. And we welcome you whether you approve of a church saying shitty or whether you are offended by it. We welcome you if you think God created the world in 7 literal 24-hour days, or if you suspect we evolved from lower life forms over billions of years.
We welcome you whether you were born in the United States or not, and we welcome you no matter the details of your citizenship or the color of your skin. We celebrate you as the beautiful creation of God that you are. We welcome those who are disenfranchised, those who struggle with their health, those who have disabilities and different abilities, and those who have been rejected and those who weren't protected, those whose voices have been silenced and those whose people have been oppressed.
We welcome people all along the beautiful spectrum of neurodiversity, those who long to be embraced for their differences, and those who just want to fit in. We offer a special welcome to those who could use prayer right now, those who had religion shoved down their throats as kids, or just accidentally clicked on this video as they were browsing Facebook. We welcome pilgrims, vacationers, seekers, doubters, and skeptics.
Today, we welcome those of you who are afraid and lonely, those who are grieving, those who are protesting, and those who are protesting the protesters. We welcome and celebrate healthcare providers and first responders. We welcome those who are laid off or have had their hours cut and are wondering where the next paycheck is coming from.
We welcome you whether you get your news from Fox, MSNBC, or OAN. We welcome those who voted Republican or Democrat, those who are happy with our president, those who think the election was rigged, and everyone in between. We welcome keep fit moms, soccer dads, starving artists, tree huggers, latte sippers, vegetarians, and junk food eaters. We welcome you if you drive a hybrid, or if you drive a gas guzzler, or if you've lost your license.
We welcome those who are inked, pierced, both, or neither. We welcome you whether you live in Novato, San Rafael, Petaluma, Colorado, Minneapolis, Philadelphia,
Dallas, Texas, Chicago, Illinois, Puerto Vallarta, Canada, Redwood City, Silicon Valley, Santa Clara, Santa Rosa, Richmond, Virginia, the whole state of Florida, or wherever you live on this great planet Earth we call home.
Most of all, we are just glad you are here.
Most of all, we're just glad you're
We're just
here.
glad you're here.
You are not here by accident, and we welcome you into this